Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is day 6 of the United States National Aerobatic Championship. I am Philip Gregg, and I am joined this morning with Lori Penner. Good morning.
Good morning, and I'm Lori Penner, editor of Sport Aerobatic magazine and our e-newsletter, In the Loop.
Yeah, every time I've done a broadcast, I've been trying to encourage people to, if they're EA members or not even EA members, to join IAC. We're a chapter of the Experimental Aircraft Association, and one of the really awesome benefits is the articles we get every month through the In the Loop. We have a totally digital archive now of all of the back issues. It includes a lot of safety tech tips. You can go back now and sort of look at some of these articles historically and really study up on aerobatics and aerobatic airplanes. So if you love that, that's the place to be. And then we have 6 issues a year of a full color magazine. And I have to say that through the years we've had, about 10, 15 years ago, sometimes I felt some of the issues were very thin, but I have been amazed at the last few issues of how much content you've been able to put into the magazine.
Yeah, you know what, the membership of IAC is just so generous with their stories, and we have a lot of people who build aircraft, and all their build pictures, and it's just incredible. I just ask them, I say, boy, that looks really interesting, would you write an article? And without a doubt, the majority of people go, yeah. And then there's some of them that say, well, I can't really write. Mm-hmm. So I just say, well, we have some good editors, so yeah. Don't worry about that.
Indeed, and I've talked to people that were hesitant about writing, and I think what's cool about the magazine too is it has a lot of different voices. And so you don't have to be a writer to contribute. If you're an incredibly knowledgeable builder, you're an experienced CFI, you have something to offer. And so hearing even sometimes somewhat similar topics in different voices lets you think about things. The sport of aerobatics is really a lot about study and education and repetition and getting it down. So when I hear something written by your husband or a different CFI, it's like, I haven't thought about it quite that way.
Exactly.
And it just increases my knowledge base. And I wanted to highlight something in particular. We're sort of still in our introductions here, but we've had some really cool international content recently. Maybe we can talk about that in between flights. But we're the Aerobatic Club of America, but we're also the International Aerobatic Club. So we have a lot of foreign members.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I've had some articles as far away as Spain come in. So.
Yeah, we had one about Germany, Iceland,
Yep.
some builds there. So I hope we have folks listening from there, because you're part of the club and you're in our community.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think we're getting. We have a glider called in, is what I heard from the chief judge. I don't have that in front of me, but we'll.
So we're taking a look to see who's going to be coming in the box first. We believe we have a glider that's going to be coming in. Yeah. We're just double checking with the chief judge right now and looking at the schedule to see if we can determine.
Looks like we may have Gretchen Knox coming, and I believe I heard her voice over the radio just now, so that it looks like we have an intermediate glider. So since we're still getting to introductions, and we have a moment, it looks like, before the glider comes in. It is 73 degrees. The winds on the surface are 160 at 11. That's not terrible. But at 1,500 above ground level, the 5,000 above ground level, 33 knots at about the same direction. So we're going to have some thinking today, especially for the intermediate pilots thinking about their unknown flights. This is the third flight, the unknown flight, and that skill and thought in dealing with wind is going to maybe separate some of the competitors from each other as they fly. We're getting a whistle. Looks like we're having a roll in here. I'm trying to get eyes on our competitor, and there he is. It looks like.
Yep, Tyler Sperry, and he's from Grand Forks, North Dakota. He's flying a super decathlon from the University of North Dakota.
That's right, one of our college competitors. So he pulls up to the 45. The primary sequence is the same 3 times in a row. It's just the introductory category that gets you tuned up on competition aerobatics. He's into the 1.5 turn spin, and we may have some audio technical difficulties, so we're just double checking that right now. Hopefully my voice is going out and you can hear. We're into the half Cuban here for Tyler, headed towards the right side of the box and the judges, and he's thinking about his position for the loop. It seems to be on now. Okay, I think
Okay.
Lori may not have been broadcasting, so.
Okay, I'm gonna check. And I've got a thumbs up.
Okay, great. Well, we missed all your great comments, but we can do them over again. Okay, so Tyler pulls into the loop. You can see that he's getting pushed just a little bit by the wind there, and he's coming around to that second part of the loop, finishing nicely there and thinking about his 180-degree competition turn. Is he going to go away or take it? Ah, yes, he goes away, and of course the winds are to his right, so if he had come towards the judges, he might have had more challenge there, but it looks like he wanted to go to the right there to compensate for the wind, and then into the slow roll to the inverted position, back up to level flight, and exit out of the north side of the box and wagging his wings to indicate to the judges that he's all complete. So that's it. Our first flight on our last day of competition is in the books, and we'll see a few more UND students before this is up. So we'll have the next competitor for you shortly. Note on the weather, we had to have a little bit of a delay on this category yesterday because the winds kicked up significantly, and we made the decision to scratch for the day. So we're trying to get as much flying as we can here at the United States National Aerobatic Championships, and we're trying to get the primary intermediate power and power intermediate glider in before the winds really whip up, and then we'll be featuring the 4-minute free from the unlimited pilots later in the day. I think we might have heard glider. Oh, that was Jared. Okay, all right. Sounds we have intermediate power coming in. They're flying their unknown sequence, and we have Mr. Jared Bachman coming in his beautiful S1E. I was asking Jared about this plane the other day. So the S1E is a kit-built plane. That kit would have been purchased from the Pitts factory, and it's basically all the parts they would have used to build the S1S, but you bought all the parts in a package and then assembled it. It's got kind of a modified prop on it, but other than that, it looks like it's made out of factory pieces, because it is made out of factory pieces. Gorgeous airplane. Spent a little time in Texas. It's now with Jared in Colorado, and he's diving in, getting up ahead of steam. The first maneuver is going to be an avalanche. That's a loop with a full snap roll on the top. You can hear him winding up. Great sounding airplane, great looking airplane. He's thinking about where he wants to put this position because of those high winds, and he is now pitching into the loop. Needs to get that radius tight enough so he can light off the avalanche. He goes all the way around into the avalanche and comes down the back side of the loop, thinking about how he wants to draw that radius because of the winds. And wind's going to be a factor here today, so he's going to have to be thinking about his flying and the game of aerobatics, as well as his adjustments that he needs to make relative to the wind. Pulls to the vertical quarter roll up, push out to level flight. And he's setting up for a 1 1/4 turn spin. So he's on the y-axis right now, and that 1 1/4 turn spin has to go in a particular direction. It has to go to the right, because he needs to end up, at the end of this figure, going downwind. I'm not sure if the camera is able to pick up the drift, but from the ground here we can see he's moved many hundreds of feet because of the wind drift. And into the P loop, he's going to pull vertical and then 3/4 loop to exit to our left, into the radius now, and all the way around. Setting up for the 180 competition turn. So he quickly rolls his wings, separating the roll from the pitching portion, if you will, or the turning portion. Finishes the turn, shows the end of the turn, and then the roll. So again, a little bit different than you would do it for your private pilot syllabus or your commercial license. Setting up now for a 45 with a half roll on the 45, layout inverted. So he's going to pull to the 45. Looks like he's thinking about positioning here, taking his time, compensating for the wind. Half roll, he wants to center that roll. And the judges will be looking at the centering of the roll, the quality of the roll, as well as the angle of that 45-degree line. Setting up now for a half down loop. This is a 6K figure, and he's trying to make that as round as he can given the wind conditions. Setting up now for figure 8, which is a reverse half Cuban with a 2 of 4. That's a hesitation roll that stops every 90 degrees. He's got to show the judges each of those points and then continue around into the radius. Another upwind maneuver, He's going to take his time to drive back to the other side of the box, it looks like, and pull into the vertical with a quarter roll up. Hammerhead, stall turn, or pivot. After the quarter roll, he's going to pivot into the wind. That'll give it a nice looking effect. And he's going to come out on the y-axis and enter into a Humpty bump. Nothing on the up line there, and he's going to connect these vertical lines up and down with a half loop. On the vertical down line, quarter roll down, and he will exit to the judge's right. Pretty good sequence here. We've got 12 figures, so he's got 2 more to go. Now into the wedge. Looks like we had a break there. I lost him under the tent position, but looks like he's repositioning for figure 11 and 12. So he's going to come in figure 11 and 12 after he resets his position. Are you on?
I think I'm on.
Do you want to introduce yourself? I'm joined today by a young man from the United States Air Force Academy. He's going to help us look at some gliders and look at some of the power and intermediate power.
Yeah, my name is Dave Petzold, and like was said, I'm from the United States Air Force Academy. I'm on our glider aerobatic team, and while I myself do not fly intermediate, a lot of my teammates, I'm ready to talk about what they're going to do today.
Cool. I was going to say, presumably you don't fly intermediate glider because otherwise, yeah, that's good. Otherwise, you'd be in a little bit of trouble.
Otherwise, yeah.
Okay, so Jared's back into his sequence. Looks like he did that wedge, and he should now be pulling for. There's the wedge. Sorry, I have the reverse form. We don't have all the paperwork out here. So he's going to pull for that wedge, set the 45 down line, 204 hesitation roll. So again, the judges want to see a hesitation. Make sure that that's a defined point. And then into the final figure, which is I would call it a modified Immelman. It's a half loop up with 1.5 rolls on top, and that roll needs to begin at the end of the loop. There's no pause, no opportunity to gain airspeed. It needs to get right from that radius work right into the roll, and that's part of the challenge there. So he comes all the way around, and one more, and that is the end of his sequence. Incidentally, that figure, number 12, is featured on the intermediate powered known for the proposed sequence for 2024, and we have exactly 1 day left for the membership to send in comments about the rule change proposals and the proposed sequences for next year. So if you have any comments, please send those in, because the board will read the comments and consider all of your thoughts about the different processes. So we will see that figure 12 that's in the unknown this year in the known sequence next year. And I actually think that was very intentional and quite clever, because here you're going to get it in the unknown, and if you're already in the intermediate category, you're going to be flying it quite a bit next year. So what category do you fly?
I fly sportsman, the sportsman glider, yeah.
Oh, very good. Do you primary glider is a new category, so was that flown, or is that being considered for the program, or do you just go right into sportsman glider?
So at the Air Force Academy, we don't fly primary glider, just because that's a lot of our introductory training will get us past the primary glider maneuvers, and so we transition straight into sportsman usually. So for example, at Ben Lowell, which was our last competition, we all flew, all the new members of the team flew sportsman.
Oh, very cool, yeah. So, you know, it's funny, last night, we had an auction, and one of the auction items to raise money for nationals was some glider aerobatics training. And I have to say, a number of the power pilots took really very intense interest in that prize. And I got talking to some folks after the banquet, and you would be surprised, we have some very experienced power competitors, folks in Advanced Unlimited, who have never even sat in a glider.
Yeah.
And I was telling them, I said, you're gonna love it. I mean, playing with spoilers, like, we like having throttles in the power world, but spoilers are so much fun to play with.
Yeah, it's and it's a little bit different type of flying, because you don't have the power to deal with things like energy management and altitude, and you're really focused on what's happening around the aircraft in the air, in terms of like thermals and looking at clouds to judge where lift might be, things like that. It's a whole different type of flying, which is a lot of fun. really, and because you don't have that powered component, you're also really focused on just the basics, the stick and rudder of aviation, and I think it's a really good tool and good at training. So.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we've talked about this earlier in the week. Anything you can do to adjust your skill set as a pilot is just going to make you an overall better pilot. So you've noticed that most of the aircraft flying here are, actually all the competitor aircraft are tailwheel. That requires special training. I learned a lot from glider training, just like you're talking about energy management. I used to think thermals were but mere turbulence.
Yeah.
And then I got in a glider and I realized, wait a minute, I can actually use this flying my 65 horsepower Luscombe to increase my climb rate in the desert.
Yeah.
There are mountains in the desert you cannot get over in a 65 horsepower Luscombe on a practical basis without thermaling. So when I lived down in Tucson, I used to thermal my Luscombe all the time. I'd go cross country, thermal up to whatever altitude I needed, and then scoot on. And of course, at those altitudes, I probably had about 28 horsepower left or something. But I was able to get up to altitude. Was glider flying your first aviation experience, or did you do an intro in something else like power?
So when I was younger in high school, I got a lot of incentive rides in various powered aircraft. But the gliders were kind of my first introduction to aviation, beyond just the 30 minutes, 45 minutes watching someone else fly. So coming to the academy and being able to fly a plane at the academy is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I don't consider myself a history expert, but I like to dig into history because it's fun and it can inform our present day. So, the Air Force Academy kind of had an interesting history. The T-41 Mescalero, I think it was called, was one of two airplanes that Cessna. I happen to be reading Cessna Wings of the World, by the way, and there's a reference in there to Harold Cryer, who was the first U.S. National Aerobatic Championship because they brought him out to fly the Aerobat. I digress. But so the T-41 was one of two airplanes. They also put forward a version of a 182, and I don't know the exact reasons. It was probably contract cost or something, and Beach and some other people may have put airplanes together, but they chose the T-41 Mescalero. And then I don't know at what point, was it the Bulldog, or was there a Slingsby? There was a Slingsby. The internet's yelling at me right now, and that was used for a little while, and then I think they just went to Hawk XPs. But is there any power there other than the tow planes, or?
Yeah, so our airfield's kind of divided up into three different squadrons. The glider side, we're the 94th Flying Training Squadron. We have the Wings of Blue, which is the Air Force parachute team.
Oh, very neat.
And then on the other side of the airfield is the 557th Flying Training Squadron, and they do, they're kind of, they work hand in hand with our Aero Club that we have out there. And they're the powered flying team, and so they fly the Mescalero and the Death Hawk. And
oh, you still have Mescaleros there?
do, yes.
Oh, very cool. Sorry, what was the second aircraft?
The Death Hawk.
The Death Hawk?
Yes, they basically, it's a, and I don't live on that side of the airfield, so I'm probably wrong in saying this, but it's a souped up version of a Cessna 172, I think.
Oh, okay. So maybe it's a more modern version of a Mescalero.
Modern, yeah.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
And then of course our the Aero Club, they fly their own. They have I think they're diamonds. So,
Yeah.
Pretty nice planes.
And what's the field elevation there?
We call it 6.5.
Okay. So I'm guessing density altitude is part of your education early on.
Yeah. Density altitude plays a big role actually in a lot of our operations. Especially when you're talking about gliders, and we're looking to, we get towed obviously, and so with the air being as thin as it is, sometimes, especially for when we're practicing for aerobatics and stuff, those high tows can take a long time.
I would imagine. Yeah, so I really wanted to come to the contest you guys had that this year. There was the Ben Lowell aerial confrontation at the Air Force Academy. What a privilege that would have been. I filed all the paperwork and I told Jared, I really don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. And indeed, I was not able to make it, but I'm hoping you'll have it next year.
Yeah.
So I know I know Jerry Esquinazi, who's our one of our intermediate pilots and one of our judges out here, made the trip, and he just had a blast. And he's a former Air Force guy, so it was like a homecoming for him. And I just thought it would be such a rare privilege to be able to fly out of a base like that.
It's a lot of fun, and every time I go down and fly the gliders, and I'm flying them while all my friends are in class or marching in formation. I'm always reminded of how awesome an opportunity it is.
So just to be clear, do you have makeup marching duty or makeup classes, or you just get out of it and you get
I
to
just
fly?
get out of it just to fly.
Is there anyone in the program, you don't have to name them, of course, we wouldn't want them to lose their undergraduate pilot training slot. Is there anyone in the program who actually doesn't want to fly but just wants to get out of marching in class?
No, I think we all want to fly. I think getting out of marching and having a nice schedule is kind of just an extra perk.
Okay, it looks like we have a new competitor turning into the box. So, Lori, do we have a name on that person? I'm guessing it's a primary competitor. It's definitely a decathlon.
Might be Benjamin, I don't know.
We think it might be Mr. Benjamin Buell, and that would be from the MSU team. Once we get eyes on the aircraft, we'll be able to have a better idea here.
Who?
And we've confirmed it's Benjamin Buell coming in the Extreme Decathlon, that higher horsepower decathlon that operates out of Colorado. Also, they're just, they're your neighbors there, aren't they, Dave?
Yeah, they are.
So he's gonna do the primary sequence again. We're looking for that pull to the 45, and he'll push off to level flight, set up for his 1.5 turn spin. You hear that power coming back, and in this wind, he looks like he's not even moving. The camera, of course, has him centered in frame, so you're not quite getting the relative motion there, but we're standing here on the ground, and he was not moving when he went into that spin.
Yeah,
So.
no, it looks like those winds aloft have picked up quite a bit from yesterday even.
Yeah, and we may have to be a little adaptive here, because if the winds kick up too much, we may have to either adjust order of flight or cancel some of the flying. So we'll see what happens. So you can see he's really scooting across the box there and into the 5/8 loop, otherwise known as the half cube, and he'll put a half roll on this. Wow, he just came to a stop at the top of that because of the winds. And half roll on the 45. He's going to pull level. He's got to have enough speed now for the loop. And you can see he's adjusting position, put it right over the judges, and here he is right over the judges' heads, pulling into that loop. Judges will be looking at pitch rate, making sure that's a smooth, nice round loop. And a loop has to be wind corrected, so he's having to make considerations about how to make that figure round in this wind. Driving now for position and turning into the competition, a 180-degree turn. Nice view of those beautiful invasion stripes. Again, on the ground, the airplane looks a little more orange, but I've noticed when it picks up the light, it kind of has this interesting red luster to it. So a really cool paint job on that XD, and then into the slow roll, figure 5, to finish the primary sequence. And we should momentarily be seeing wing wags. And there they are. Okay, so that was Mr. Benjamin Buell. Thank you, Benjamin. Congratulations, you have finished nationals. So we're gonna be integrating glider intermediate and intermediate power. We have Gretchen Knox coming in for the intermediate glider.
Go Gretchen.
And I have a feeling you have some familiarity with this sequence. Would that be correct?
Yes, the intermediate unknown. Our seniors, that's who's flying intermediate. Our seniors, they came back to our trailer yesterday, and we're discussing this one in depth. So, couple maneuvers on here that are difficult to perform in the glider. Going from figure 1 to figure 2 there. Figure 1 to figure 2 is we really got to focus on energy management.
Okay, so figure 1 is a half loop up.
Half loop up, yep.
And then you're flying along inverted in a glider with no power to keep your nose up, if you will, and then you got to pull around to a 5/8 loop and pull up to that 45. that's a big haul.
Yeah,
in a glider.
It is, and for gliders, all of our uplines are 30-degree uplines.
Yep.
So yeah, flying from figure 1 there inverted to figure 2, staying inverted, 5/8 loop up to that 30-degree upline with the cap.
What do you figure the G is on that 5/8 loop in the glider?
Well, so for that 5/8 loop, in order to make it look nice and rounded, we slowly bring on the G. So we'll start with like a 1, 2, 3, probably getting all the way up to 4.5 just to get that nose all the way back up to the 30-degree upline, making sure we're not losing too much speed so that we have room to draw that line, and then cap. And then that figure 3 there, that split S, I know for my class yesterday, as a part of our free, we had a split S as our first maneuver, and that's a very, very tricky one to do in our glider.
Yeah. I noticed some people were raising those to slow down because you have a
Yes.
critical entry speed there. Now, from a judging perspective, that's an error and it's downgradable, but
yes.
it's also a safety issue. So you
Exactly.
take the hit on the points,
We do.
get down to speed that's safe, you make that roll, and then you start to integrate in the
Yeah.
radius work.
Exactly. And so part of it as well is that safety. The reason why we raise the nose before we roll is because once we're upside down, we're looking for 70 knots. We have to be at 70 knots or slower before we can pull through for any sort of loop. And so if we're too fast, or if we try to do it with our nose at or below the horizon, we're going to be sitting there pushing negative G for a considerable amount of time before we're allowed to pull through. So,
and this is a much more critical maneuver because if you let that nose drop or the airspeed gets too much, you can really get up a significant head of steam and also critically a lot of altitude.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a safety consideration. It has to be executed carefully.
Yes. So split S figure 3 is a difficult one. And then anything with the quarter roll, so specifically figure 6, we're looking, as soon as we hammer, we're looking to roll right away, mostly because, again, the speed. And because we're a glider, we kind of just plummet. We're always falling, and so when we're going straight at the ground, we're falling even faster. So.
Yeah. Is that, I've noticed that roll occurs incredibly quickly, but when you're inside the cockpit, are you sort of saying touch roll, or is it just immediate?
Yeah, so it's kind of a touch roll. It's a breathe. We especially on the hammer with that quarter roll down, we'll hammer, we'll figure out our coordination, we'll breathe, and then we'll just roll right away.
Yeah.
We want to make sure we're coordinated though, because otherwise our airspeed's not going to be accurate, and we want to make sure we're seeing an accurate airspeed before we start that roll.
Where's the pitot tube on the DG?
Actually, so on the DG, it's right in the nose, in the beak. So when we're on tow, since we get towed from that beak, our airspeed's not super accurate on tow just because of where the gear and the hardware is. And so, but because it's in the beak of the plane, it means that when we're pointed down, or if we're flying uncoordinated at all, we're not seeing an accurate airspeed. So that's why coordination in our glider is super important for many reasons, that being one of them.
Okay, we have a glider off tow.
And here she goes. First maneuver here is going to be a half loop onto inverted. She's going to build airspeed here. Here she goes into that half loop up. Gliders are always so fun to watch. They just look very graceful up there, especially ours with the 60-foot wingspan. There she is, completing that figure 2. And to figure 3 here, the split S we were just talking about. And there she is, you can see her pushing, waiting to check that 70 knots before she pulls through. And on the way down here, she's trying to make it look as looped as possible. Here we are into figure 4, the reverse shark's tooth. She's going to set a 30-degree upline, perform a half roll, and then she's going to pull and point the nose and glider straight at the ground. There she is, a wonderful downline, pulling out into figure 5, which is pull, humpty. First, she's going to pull the glider straight to the vertical. Building some speed here. Trying to position herself as best as she can for the judges. There it is, staying in the vertical. Pulling over the top and then setting a vertical down line. Wonderful down line there. Pulling out of figure 5 into figure 6. This is a hammerhead with a quarter roll on the down line. She is positioning herself to take into account the wind that we're feeling into the vertical, and then immediately kicking that right rudder to try to get our airplane to rotate around its center. That quarter roll, if she can sneak it in on the down. Here we are into figure 7, which is a glider maneuver, quarter clover. go. So wonderful. So it's a quarter roll on the upline of a loop, basically. Causes a 90-degree heading change. Out of figure 7 into figure 8. Wonderful job there. And the last figure here at 2-point hesitation roll. Stopping there briefly upside down before rolling, and there she is working to get that glider back around.
Very cool. Thanks for the call, Dave.
Of course, and as we will see with our gliders, our 60-foot wingspan makes it a bit of a work to roll it. So any roll you'll see us in the cockpit, we just pin the stick as hard as we can to the left side and don't let it leave the wall, because otherwise it's not going to roll around.
That makes sense. Yeah, there's a lot of inertia and there's a lot of aerodynamic resistance with that much wing. I've done a little glider flying in a couple different models, like a Grobe, and indeed, if you want to make the roll move, you've got to use full stick, and you better get it on about as quick as you can. So when you watch the Fox perform, it's the Ferrari of the glider world for sure. Yeah. Okay, it sounds like we have our next power primary competitor being called in as we stand here looking for her. This is going to be Sarah Arnold in the Super Decathlon. Slightly modified from a normal Super Decathlon. It was the first decathlon in the country to have the Hartzell composite prop, and it also has the ailerons off of the Extreme, but it has the 160, so it's a little bit lighter, still has the roll performance. And you saw this airplane flown in the contest in Sportsman Power by Mr. Dick Swanson, who is Sarah's father, and a couple years ago by Mike Lentz, who won the intermediate category with this aircraft. So an aircraft that is well known to a lot of us competitors, and maybe feared too. Dick having taken the gold in the Sportsman compulsory. Well done, Dick. So Sarah's up here to make her third flight, and we're just trying to put eyes on her. So I was going to ask you, I was talking to some glider pilots yesterday, and I don't know the exact judging criteria for the quarter clover. At what point in the radius does the quarter roll start?
So because it's a quarter clover and a power maneuver, you have a full clover, which is basically 4 of what we do. For the quarter, for a quarter clover with the quarter on the up line, we're looking for a quarter roll on the up line, so that once we get inverted, we're wings level inverted over the top.
Sure, but insofar as there should be a constant radius, does the roll have to start the moment the pitching starts, or are you allowed a certain degree of pitch before you start to integrate the roll?
They're looking for the roll to start right away. But I can tell you, as the pilot flying, it's really hard to tell until our nose gets like 45 degrees nose high, and that's usually when I personally and when we teach kind of when to start the roll. Is once that nose gets 45 or so degrees high, then we start the roll, and then we're looking for that wings level inverted.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's what I see.
Exactly. So we can also perform a quarter clover with the roll on the down line,
right?
Which is basically we perform essentially 5/8 of a loop, and then we roll as we're coming down, and that one is pretty self-explanatory in terms of when the roll occurs.
Okay, we see the competitor in the box. I think we see wing wags. Yes, wing wags. Okay, so we're looking for the start of the sequence now. This is primary power. We're going to have a pull to the 45. Looks like there's a little dive for airspeed there. Ground track is slow over the ground because of the winds.
Yeah,
the winds, they're howling up there. We had reported pull to the 45, 30, as much as 39 to 33 knots at altitude, and it is definitely making its presence known. Setting up for the 1.5 turn spin, so she's flying there in level flight with she wants to have that deck angle appropriate to drop the spin right where she wants it. And she'll come around to 1.5 turns and set that vertical down line. and pull level. And now, I think the big trick, kind of two tricks to this sequence, well maybe three. You set up for the 45 and you want to drop the spin in the right place, but you also need to leave yourself enough space with this half Cuban she's currently flying to place the roll. And then you got to set the 180 so that you can place the loop, and then the 180 and then the roll. So there's a strategic game here being played as well as the quality of the maneuver. So Sarah pulling into the loop now, getting into the G tight in the bottom when the airspeed is high, and then floating a little bit over the top as those stick force is lower, and down gaining airspeed again, getting that G back on to complete the loop. Turning the competition to 180 now, bringing it towards the judges. And setting up for the slow roll. Aircraft coming through the inverted and back around and out, and she will signal out of the box. So we have another primary competitor complete their sequence.
Thanks, Sarah. Exit on and switch to tower.
So I haven't done a ton of quarter clovers, Dave, but it seems to me that if you overcooked the roll rate too early, you could kind of create a weird floppy looking loop. Is that like, what are the errors that you see? You're an instructor pilot, is that right?
I am, yeah.
Okay, I didn't think you'd stolen that hat. So what are the kind of common errors that you see with when you're teaching the quarter clover?
So I can speak from learning the quarter clover. One of the things is if you under or over roll, you'll end up with just a sloppy looking loop, and it won't really truly be a quarter clover.
Yeah. A quarter clover's fun. It's very hard to judge, but you mentioned, Dave, you can do that roll up or down, and then since it's a quarter clover, if you imagine the loop being the leaf of a clover, when you put them four attached together, each at 90 degrees, you kind of have a clover leaf. But there's almost an infinite amount of possibility, and then if you went up in the categories, you could make those loops outside too.
Yeah.
And so you could do inside, outside. You could really create some cool figures with that. I don't know how well they'd work in an air show, but
no, the quarter clover is wonderful. It's a lot of fun to fly, and when we're showing students the maneuverability of our aircraft, we love showing them quarter clovers because that's one of those where, I mean, in a glider, because there's no engine, when you're slow, it's really quiet in the cockpit, and that's one of those that's really fun to watch people's reactions of, because it gets super quiet and we're wings level inverted ideally.
Yeah, hard to judge, but a great coordination maneuver. So, we don't have barrel rolls in competition because they're just virtually impossible to judge, but I do quite a few wing overs, aggressive lazy eights, if you will, where I keep bringing the pitch up and then it starts to turn into a wing over, and just coordination maneuvers. So it's great to know the airplane, it's graceful, it's fun flying. If the sun's setting out on the West Coast in San Diego, I almost always finish my flights with some barrel rolls and
that's wonderful.
watch the sunset. So we have one of your colleagues coming in here, it looks like.
This is Mike, and there he is in figure one of that half loop up to inverted.
What's Mike's last name?
Lob.
Oh, yes,
I think he was over here yesterday commentating actually for a little bit.
Very good.
Awesome. Here he goes into the split S. Again, he's thinking about pushing the nose up to slow down to 70 knots at least before he finishes his half loop. Next up, we've got the reverse shark's tooth. It's a 30-degree upline with a half roll. It's a half roll. And this is hold the aircraft nose vertically down. It's the pull Humpty. Those winds aloft are definitely playing a factor here in that quarter clover we were talking about. Very graceful looking maneuver. And the half Cuban. This is a 5/8 loop and a half roll on this down line. final maneuver of the sequence, which is a 2-point hesitation roll.
I thought in some of the maybe other glider categories we saw some 30s that were flown as 45s. Are there certain figures, or I think in unlimited you just fly 45s, don't you? Like, how does that? Because there's slightly, we only have in power we have level, vertical, and 45 up and down. But you have 30s, but then I think there's some exceptions. Do you know what they are? Because I plead ignorance.
You know, I honestly can't speak for anything beyond intermediate. We haven't flown unlimited, as far as I'm aware. If we have, it's been a long time. So, as a team at least, and so I'm pretty confident when I say that almost everything is supposed to be a 30-degree up or down line, because we're in a glider, and that 45 degrees is really hard to get to and maintain.
Sure.
And so I'm pretty confident that everything is supposed to be a 30-degree up and down line, at least at the intermediate sportsman and primary level.
Okay, so it's not a figure-by-figure basis.
No.
I'm going to have to hit the rule book. I just don't recall, and it's been a little while since I've seen unlimited glider flown, because we now have the glider national championships in the upper categories over in Arizona. So I haven't been out there yet, but it's I think it's March this coming year.
That sounds
it
about
might have
right.
been February this past year, but I think there's, again, we were talking about that auction item for some aerobatic training out there at Shad's place, Arizona Soaring.
Sounds about
I think
right.
it is, yeah. And so I think there's going to be some power pots show up to join the fun. So
That's going to be wonderful.
yeah. Are you all planning to do the Tequila Cup that you're aware of?
We are, yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be your last contest for the season.
For this, this year, yep.
And then you'll be there at the championship.
And then
I'm
we'll
assuming.
be there out at Estrella.
Okay.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to look at the proposed knowns for next year?
I haven't actually. I haven't.
So coming up next, Devin Graves, and that is one of our UND students flying primary power in the red Super Decathlon. Yeah, well, I'll be excited to have a new. It's just memorized. I don't have it down there, but it'll be exciting to have some new sequences to work on. And will you just push continuously through and start working on the new sequences, or do you sort of stand down and start the season structurally in a particular way?
So this is my first season actually on the team,
Okay.
so I'm not 100% confident as to how we do that reset kind of. I would imagine that as soon as the known gets finalized, we'd start working on it and start practicing with it. So.
Cool. I've taken a peek at the glider sequences as well, but I don't have as much of an understanding about what they look like in different airframes. So I've flown about half a dozen different gliders, and half of them were semi-aerobatic capable, but some more than others. We're also on a C form too, so. Okay, all right. We are waiting for Mr. Devin Graves to come in. He should be approaching from the north, and we hear engine noise, but I don't have eyes on him yet. I think we're listening to the tow plane. So we're just waiting on him. So far the winds have been strong in the box, but surface winds are still manageable, I think. Do you have a numerical or angle limit to operations? I know I had been out launching gliders in the desert, and we had to call it a couple times, but we can operate in some pretty decent winds as long as they're straight down the runway.
Yeah, so for our airframe, I know the IAC has its own rules, but for our airframe, we have a max wind component of 25 knots, and then a max crosswind component of 16. So
Oh, that's significant.
Yeah,
That's,
so we can-
I would have guessed less. I think our club we limited ourselves to about 12, maybe
Oh,
14
wow,
at the
yeah.
most. Yeah, so that's 16 is pretty good. Okay, we have a whistle from the chief judge. I'm coming into primary power. Mr. Graves is coming in. He's going to pull to the 45 and set up for that 1.5 turn spin. Hear a little surge of the prop and engine there as he gets his airspeed. You can see the sun is still pretty low in the sky based on the way it's illuminating the fuselage. We had an absolutely beautiful sunrise this morning, and if it looks like the sun's sort of coming from below the airplane, that's really where the sun is. It's just above the horizon, so we're getting a nice view of that airplane there. He sets caps off the 45, setting up for a turn to the left, and going to come around in a 1.5 turn spin, set that vertical down line, show it to the judges. Here you don't just fly out of the spin. A little different than how you do it in FAA training, FAA type training. He's thinking about his box position now and setting up for the half Cuban. He'll pull around to the 45. set the line, give the judges time to evaluate that, and then into the half roll. And give a brief pause before pulling so that they can compare those two lines, both angle and length of line relative to one another. And he's right into the loop. Pulling that high G at the bottom, airspeed slowing down, floating over the top. You can actually get into below 1 G. You can be in microgravity at the top of a loop, and then all the way back down to 4 or 5 Gs, depending on what airspeed you start with. So kind of a fun maneuver in terms of the oscillation of the G. And then into the competition at 180, he elects to take it away from the judges because he decides that his optimal positioning will be over on that side of the box. And completion of the turn, setting up, thinking about that roll now for his final figure. And out. And wing wags. And well done, Devin, thank you. That is your nationals. Finishing up here with these categories, and we're waiting for the next competitor to come in. So how many airframes do you operate out there at the soaring operation? Not here today, but back at the base.
So the 94th, we have our workhorse is our TG16. That's the DG1001 club. And
So TG stands for trainer glider?
Yes,
That's an Air Force designation?
Exactly, yeah. The T stands for trainer, the G stands for glider. Our cross-country team has their own glider, Duo Discus.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's
they
a heck
do.
of an aircraft.
It is. It's really good. We set quite a number of records with that one.
I would imagine that's really an incredible machine.
And then we also do own a MDM-1 Fox. As a team, we just haven't had the opportunity to fly it quite yet.
Oh, neat. So is that a recent acquisition?
We've had it for a while. Because we fly for the Air Force, there's a number of Air Force procedural things that have to happen in order to introduce a new aircraft and to fly that aircraft. So.
Very cool. Have you seen the Thomas Crown Affair where they have the Duo Discus in it?
I haven't actually.
Oh, that's one of the famous scenes. There's the Steve McQueen version where he flies, I think, a Schweitzer, and then there's the who was James Pierce Brosnan? They did a remake of the film, and there's a Duo Discus scene in there with the leading lady, and it's really cool. They put this dramatic music in there, and they're doing this ridge running out in New England over these like fall leaves and stuff. And at this point, he's completely managed to seduce her, of course. So I love that scene. It's really cool. That's definitely one of the more fun depictions of soaring. We have Top Gun depiction. We have occasionally we'll see a light aircraft in a movie, but there's not a lot of glider scenes.
Yeah.
So, but the two versions of the Thomas Crown Affair, and a very clever movie too. So if you like a mystery or kind of an action movie, both Steve McQueen and Pierce Brosnan showing off some gliders as part of their repertoire of the tricky man, Thomas Crown. So I recommend it. You guys should check it out. I feel like that should be in the Air Force Library.
Oh, it probably is somewhere.
Yeah. So interesting note, speaking of Air Force Library, we're waiting on Mr. Lee Hubner to enter here in his beautiful 300S. I hear some engine growls, but I don't see him yet. Okay, it looks like we've got him on base leg. He may have just done a safety belt check. He's out there assessing the wind, kind of adjusting his position, figuring out how he wants to enter the box. He's still behind the box, so he's got a good view from where he's sitting of those box markers, 9 box markers on the ground, figuring out where he wants to roll in. And I think we'll just pick up Lee's flight here. I'll tell you the U.S. Air Force Academy library story in just a minute. So he's peering behind his wing, looking down and back at the box, looking at that drift, making some calculations. Looks like he's decided to turn in now and get this sequence out in front of us so we can make the call. Chief Judge is blowing the whistle, and Mr. Lee Hubner is coming in for intermediate power unknown. Setting up for the avalanche. It's got a head of steam moving pretty quickly across the box despite those powerful winds. Pulling into the loop, and a full snap roll. Now he's got to fly the backside of that loop, making compensations for that wind. Next maneuver is a half square. It's a pull to the vertical, quarter roll, centered on the upline, and a push to level flight. and setting up for the spin. So he's already thinking about box position here. He's thinking about setting up that spin, airspeed rapidly decreasing. He's got the half roll in, continue to go up the vertical line, push over the top, setting that deck angle, getting ready for the spin power back. He's going to have to take this to the left because it's a 1 turn quarter spin, and that would be headed to the judge's right. Looks like he's driving in the box a little bit. So he's felt that wind now, and he's going to make his adjustments. And he'll drop in that spin momentarily. And so he comes around in the spin. And setting the vertical down line and into a P loop. So he's going to pull vertical and get to depart the vertical line, work it into the radius, and he will do 3/4 loop. Completing that maneuver, turning into the 180 competition spin, bringing it towards the judges. And setting up for a 45 with a half roll. So he'll pull to the 45, put a half roll in the middle, and then pull to a level inverted flight, or layout inverted as we say. And that's a standalone figure. It's just a 45-degree line. So the points accumulated there for the 45 line as well as the half roll. He's now setting up for a half loop down. Nothing, no rolls on that, just a half loop. To upright flight, exit to our right, and into the reverse half Cuban. There's a 204 hesitation roll here, and then working into the 5/8 loop. Setting up now for the hammerhead with a 1/4 roll up. He'll do a hammerhead turn at the top. That's right. Got a nice view of that airplane today. Good morning sun. Coming out on the y-axis, he's setting up for the Humpty Bump. Now he did the 1/4 roll up on the hammerhead, and then 1/4 roll down has been placed on the Humpty Bump. So half roll down would be the maximum that could be in an unknown in intermediate. 1/4 roll up is the maximum. Half loop on top, vertical down, rolls, and exit level flight. Setting up for figure 11, wedge 204. So he's going to pull to the vertical, pull that around in a tight radius because he's got a low airspeed. That's how you get that sort of wedge name. Of course, it's round in a sense, but we draw it as a sharp figure. Hesitation roll 204, and setting up now for figure 12. It's a half loop with a 1.5 roll on top. So sort of like a super Immelman. It doesn't have a name as such, but and Lee is done with his flight. So thanks, Lee, for all the great flying this week. We enjoyed seeing you out there, and great field, great group of competitors in intermediate power. It's really fun. We've got diverse airframes flying in intermediate. We've got people that are experienced intermediate competitors. We have new competitors in intermediate. So it's always a very competitive category, and it's always an exciting category as well. So now you have sportsmen and intermediate gliders in the program. Have you had any of the cadets do advanced, or is that an evolution you maybe expect with the Fox?
Yeah, so currently we had some of our seniors actually fly in advanced out at Estrella out in Arizona. But we moved down to intermediate just because those figures are a lot more doable with our glider. And like you were saying, that might be flying advanced might be one of those things that's a lot more feasible once we have the Fox and we're allowed to fly that.
Very cool. Have you had a chance to fly the Duo Discus?
I've not, no.
So we're just updating our paperwork here. Give me a brief moment. We just want to make sure we have the right paperwork because the reading the sequences backwards in the opposite wind can be a little bit challenging, especially when it's a sequence we're not as familiar with, or when we have y-axis components. It's easy to get turned around as a caller when you're looking at the sequence in 180 degrees orientation from what it should be. So I think we have a moment while the glider comes in. Did he get off tow? Oh, there, he's right here. Okay, so glider's coming in. He'll be off tow in a minute, it looks like here. So a quick story about the United States Air Force Library. University libraries, and of course U.S. Air Force Academy is very much a college university. They use something called WorldCat or World Catalog, and so when you need to do interlibrary loan, one of the ways you can find a book that you might not be able to find at your institution is to borrow it from another institution. Well, the short version is I like to borrow rare and unusual aviation books, and the collection there is excellent.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, so I know you're busy, but you got to get the cadets over to the library because you guys have a great collection over there. All right. Is this one of your colleagues?
I'm not sure. It looks like a. Oh no, I can tell you from just from that, it's not.
Andre Gerner, Mr. Andre Gerner out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. I think we maybe have the city wrong. I don't know if.
That's right.
Oh, it is correct. Okay, so he's flying an MDM Fox
Definitely
glider.
flying the Fox.
That's definitely the Fox. Yeah. Okay, so Andre's getting to it, and Dave with the call.
Just finished figure 2 and figure 3, that split S. Thinking about making that as much of a loop down as we can. Figure 4, the reverse shark's tooth. The roll rate on that Fox is just incredible.
Yeah, it's cool.
Pinching into that straight vertical down line. You're going to pull out here into figure 5. A Humpty Bump. First looking to go straight to the vertical, positioning himself for the judges. There it is, vertical. Looping over the top into a vertical down line. And he's going to pull out into figure 6, which is a hammerhead with a quarter roll on the down. That big old rudder on the Fox helped him get around there. And that quarter roll into that quarter clover. There's that quarter roll and that loop. Looking to be wings level inverted. Pulling out into figure 8. This is a half Cuban. Setting that down line momentarily before rolling back upright. Throwing another short line before the last figure. 2-point hesitation roll. Beautiful view of the bottom side of that glider with the sun this morning.
Yeah, I've noticed on a lot of these glider flights, because you got to keep it tight and get down to the runway, Forrest is able to pick up these really cool long shots as the gliders sort of zoom around. So I think some of our more dramatic shots this week have actually come from the gliders banking and turning, getting ready to land. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, even the Fox, our wingspan, you know, it's really good at picking up light. And
Yeah.
the DG, most certainly, all 60 feet of it.
It's really 60 feet.
It's
That's-
59.06
that is
feet,
unbelievable.
so just about.
That is a heck of a wingspan. So I guess you don't just throw those on the back of a truck and drive them under freeway overpasses, do you?
Well, just about actually. We have specially designed trailers that we can fit the glider into.
Well, I meant with the wings on.
Oh no. Not
But
with
if
the
you
wings
wanted
on.
a Fox, you could do that and then just clip the wings off.
Yeah.
You'd get a much better roll rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, much better. Yeah, exactly.
So, do you know the wingspan of a Fox?
I do not.
I don't either, but I was talking to Shad Colson, our contest director, yesterday, and I don't remember what the number was, but he told me the glide ratio is still 30-1, because I
Really?
thought, oh, it must be 20-something, and he's like, no, it's 30-1, and I was like, wow, because you take a Grobe 103 and, you know,
Yeah.
scratch up the wing a little bit or whatever, and I think its book is 36 or 38-1, but the real, you know, the effective
actual
glide
is-
ratio is probably about 31, 32 on a
Yeah.
Grobe. But I was really impressed that it had a 30-1, because it looks kind of like a little glider
looks-
fighter, doesn't
Exactly.
it?
It does.
Yeah.
It looks very pointy, and I mean the wings don't look like they should be good at gliding.
Yeah.
14 meters.
14 meters we're being told on the MDN-1 Fox, so I don't do metric, but 45 feet. Oh, it just doesn't look like that's
doesn't look like
possible.
45
No,
feet, no.
it looks like it looks like a Cessna wing or something.
It does.
So, All right, I'll have to inspect a Fox when I get close to the one next time. I have a question for you about gliders.
Yeah.
Earlier in the contest, we had like a photo shoot set up outside of the hangar, and there was a Fox there, and it said Navy on it.
Yeah.
Did you steal one of the Navy's gliders, or is that someone else's?
So that's actually someone else's Fox.
Okay.
And, I can't speak authoritatively on it. I've just overheard the story, but I think the owner of that Fox, his father served in the Navy flying A4s, and so he has a paint scheme on his aircraft inherent in that.
Very good. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, Mr. David Smith is coming in from Natick, Massachusetts, flying the intermediate power. And he's going to set up for that first figure, which is an avalanche or avalanche, a full loop with a snap on top. He's ready. He likes his box position. He pulls, and let's look for that snap roll on top. Coming around on the back side of the radius, getting that G on, keeping that airspeed up, getting ready for figure 2. The half square, quarter roll up. Got some Alpha jets taking off in the background. Might be picking that up on the microphones. He pushes to level, sets up for the 1 1/4 turn spin. And he drops the spin to the pilot's left. He'll finish that with right rudder, forward stick, neutralize controls, get a little airspeed before he pulls, and then he's got figure number 4 coming up. And he is pulling vertical for the P loop. There's nothing up. In the higher categories, the P loop can be K'd up or made more difficult by putting a bunch of rolls on the different lines. In this case, we don't have any rolls, so it's just a plain P loop, and then into the competition 180 turn, which he takes to the left. Coming around on the 180. The 180 and the crossbox maneuvers are sometimes called wind correctors. And we have a wag out, so he's repositioning. He'll come back and finish the rest of his sequence. But sometimes we call the 180s or the turns, anything on the x-axis, a wind corrector, because if you have on or off judge wind, or you don't like your position, you're able to reposition using those maneuvers to go forward or back in the box relative to the judge's position. So we know we're picking up some people on the live stream. Welcome. This is day 6 again of 2023 National Aerobatic Championships. I'm Philip Gregg, and with me is Mr. Dave Petzold.
Petzold, yeah.
Did I say it right? Petzold?
You did, yeah.
So from the United States Air Force Academy. I'm really excited to have him here today. We've just been chatting about gliders. We're having intermediate power fly for us today. Okay, it looks like Devin is pulling up. Okay, let's pick it up here. We have a 45. That was, it looks like that was figure 8, 204 on the 45 coming around to the 5/8 loop for the half Cuban. And then he should be setting up for a hammerhead. I think we missed his re-entry, so I just want to make sure we're running the right figure for you. He's driving upwind in the box. And pulling to the vertical now. If this is the hammerhead, then it would be a quarter roll up. There it is. Okay, I think we're back on track. And a hammerhead. That extra 300 drawing big long lines today in the sky. And he'll exit on the y-axis, taking it away from the judges. And then he'll pull to the vertical to start the Humpty Bump. Nothing on this line, so he's going to do that half loop within the y-axis, if you will, and then on the downline quarter roll down, exit right to set up for figure 11. So he comes over the top, gets a good look at the box, knows right where he is, and out level flight to set up for figure 11, which is the wedge. Setting up for his landing. What were we yammering about before that started? Something about gliders, I think.
Something about gliders.
Navy gliders?
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, so that paint scheme on that Fox that we saw earlier was, I believe, in heritage to the owner's father, who flew A4s for the Navy.
Yeah.
And having looked at it up close at the beginning of the competition this week, it's a wonderful paint job, and it looks really, really cool.
Okay, next up is Justin Miller in the primary category. I believe he's currently sitting in the second. He's flying that gorgeous S111B. Yeah, a lot of military folks here. I'm glad you guys got the broadcast yesterday. I really wanted to have you out because I've tried to highlight the UND's participation, University of North Dakota College Program, MSU, Metropolitan State University's College Program, and U.S. Air Force Academy. I think Middle Tennessee University has a decathlon, and I went over to them at Oshkosh a couple years ago and I said, "What? Come on out. We want you here."
Yeah.
And we want more competitors. We want more college folks. It's great education. It's great fun. We already have 3 really awesome groups out here. And then in addition to you guys who are just starting your military career, we are surrounded by a lot of veterans.
Yeah.
So, and I won't be able to name all, but Gary DeBon, our box boss, Mike Hurer, was in the military. My coach, John Morrissey, was Air Force through A7s and thuds. And Chad Colson served as well.
Yeah.
And our chief judge in sportsman, Mark Maticoli, is still with the Air Force program? Or
Yeah,
is he still an officer, or is he
yeah.
just with the program?
No longer an officer.
Okay.
But we call him coach.
Yeah.
So that's basically what he is. He's our coach.
Yeah.
He's great as a mentor, and he's been doing this for a very long time, and so he knows a thing or two because he's seen a thing or two.
Yeah.
And he's a great guy to have around.
Yeah, and Jared Bachman, our earlier competitor in the S1, is a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and a commissioned second lieutenant waiting for his undergraduate pilot training date. And I talked to some of the other seniors, and they're about to get their dates.
Yeah.
But we've got people that retired in the late 80s here,
Yeah.
and we've got people like yourself who haven't quite graduated and are about to do a career in the armed forces. So it's really cool because I watched the interactions, and here you have people that have served in the 60s and 70s, talking about the way things were, comparing notes, asking about how the training's going, and also there's a great opportunity for mentorship. So I've noticed that a lot at these IAC contests,
Yeah.
is that there's this cross-fertilization. And some of the UND guys have been interviewing with guard units around
Yeah.
the country because there's a pilot shortage.
I know, and I know that a number of the UND folks wish to go to the Guard and fly planes there, and it's great seeing, interacting with veterans and those who have served. It's always a good time, and I think we all learn a lot. I can speak for the team here. We all learn a lot when we talk to those guys who served before us, and it's great to share that heritage too with them.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. Okay, so Mr. Justin Miller's coming in this beautiful lime green, silver, and black S111B Pitts.
That is a very pretty plane, isn't it?
It is, and it shows up great on camera if I recall, but we're just looking at him with the Mark I eyeball. He's going to pull to the 45 to set up for his final primary sequence here at 2023 U.S. National Aerobatic Championship. Justin pulls to the 45. He'll cap off with a little bit of a push, setting up for the deck angle on the spin. It's a 1.5 turn spin. Throttle back, stick back, left rudder. Oh, looks like he's spun to the right. So right rudder and left to come out of it, set the vertical down line. Now he's thinking about the half Cuban. Set up for a 5/8 loop. Bringing it around, working that radius. Half roll on the 45. And into the loop. Finishing the loop, setting up for the competition 180 turn. We got the surface wind picking up a little bit, so apologies if we're picking up any microphone noise. It's been pretty strong at altitude all day, and it's picking up here, so we'll see what happens in the sky. Finishing the competition 180 turn, setting up for that roll, and he goes to the right. That's you don't see the right roll very much below intermediate advance, but you know, we call preference or inability to do the opposite side being handed, and so it looks like Justin is not handed. He can go left, he can go right, and it doesn't matter. It's a roll. There's no judging criteria there, but when you get in the higher categories, sometimes you're forced into a particular direction of roll based on a Y-axis maneuver. So we are looking for our next glider pilot.
Kelly Murphy.
Yep. Sounds like it's Kelly up next.
Oh yeah. So I remember Kelly because she she likes to make a dramatic entrance on the radio.
She's very energetic, and
Yeah.
actually, her previous flight, I was flying in the rear seat with her.
Oh, were you?
I was her safety pilot, and
I heard a whoop.
yeah,
There was a
yep,
whoop.
we
yeah.
were trying to.
It wasn't even transmitted. We heard it from the ground. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was loud in the plane. No, we like to try to stay relaxed the best we can, and I learned for myself that your mentality going into the box. It plays a big role in how well you can fly.
Yeah.
And you're going to fly a lot better when you're more relaxed.
I just thought she was done with gliders and needed to be put into a fighter. That was my conclusion. So, and is she one of the seniors I met that's about to go to pilot training?
She is.
Okay.
Yep. She recently just got her job as a pilot trainee, and so super excited for her.
Yeah.
And her future.
Yeah, that's awesome. So a lot of whoops. Whoops all around.
Yeah.
Okay, we're just gonna pick her up on the canter momentarily. She's just popping off the tow plane there. Scotty doing good service all week in the tow plane, thanks, buddy. And we're picking up Kelly here on the video feed, and there she is.
Yeah,
so,
both of our tow pilots this week, both Scotty and Bob, have been doing wonderful work for us.
Yeah.
And, we've been very appreciative of their services.
yeah, some of the power pilots are jealous. Someone told me the other day, I want to get over there and fly one of those tow planes.
I know.
Because they're having fun.
I talked to our tow pilot, Scotty, and he says it's a dream job.
Yeah.
So there she goes into figure 1, that half loop up to inverted, drawing that line. Now she's thinking about figure 2. That 5/8 loop down to a 30-degree up line with a cap. There it is. Into the split S. She's inverted, pulling down. Looking set up well in the box for figure 4. The reverse shark scoop is what we call it, that 30-degree up line. There's the half roll. Getting all 60 feet of our wingspan up around. Flying it over the top into the vertical down line. Kelly focusing now on box positioning for the next maneuver, the pull, Humpty. With those winds aloft, you really have to be careful of where you place this maneuver, especially on a plane like ours with 60 feet of wings to get pushed around by the wind. In the vertical down line now, pulling out into figure 6. A hammerhead with that quarter roll on the down. Again, driving across the box. She's definitely thinking about that push. There she's into the vertical, kicking over with that right rudder. Looks like that hammer went well, and there's that roll right away like we were talking about earlier today. Quarter clover now.
Oh, getting that roll in early. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Here it is. Opting to quarter clover to the left. Exiting now to the judge's right. To the reverse Cuban. Or excuse me, the half Cuban, which is a 5/8 loop. Just like that, and setting that line momentarily before rolling. Back upright. Setting another line. And now she's thinking about this 2-point hesitation roll. So here she'll pause, just like that, upside down. And finish that roll, wings level upright.
You know, a 60-foot wingspan is pretty significant, but when you think about the volume that the wing occupies in a 360-degree roll, it's a huge volume.
It is incredible, and you feel it when you're flying. You feel it as you try to roll, and sometimes you got to talk to the plane a little bit and beg for it to roll around for you.
Yeah, yeah. It does look like there's some prayers going off there every once in a while, and a decathlon can get stuck on a roll too. So occasionally we'll see that, and I've talked to Mike Lentz about this. I saw him fly a regional contest and had a pretty complicated figure, and he sort of stopped, and you knew it wasn't intentional. I said, "Well, what happened there?" He's like, "I'm just holding, waiting," and he made it around, but it was kind of cool to watch.
Yeah. Sounds like up next we got Alex flying primary.
Is this primary glider, or just primary power? Alex Troutman in the Super Decathlon. Yeah. How long are those ailerons on the DG? They must be pretty long. Like
I don't
9
have,
feet, 10 feet,
I
something
don't
like
have
that?
the exact number, but I can tell you they take up less of the wing than the Fox's ailerons do.
Yep, I would imagine that's so. Of course, at some point, if they're on the end of the wing and they're voting louder, then. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, looking at the.
Forrest, can you pick this glider up? It's not even moving. So we were watching the glider. It's not on tow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is amazing.
Those winds aloft are just keeping that one of our gliders just stationary in the
Can
air.
you get that?
It's kind of crazy.
Can you grab that or? So we're having Alex come in. We're going to just do a quick shot here. This glider, you can't see it from the video. This glider has not moved in, I mean, what, a minute and a half?
Yeah.
It is not moving. We were standing here on the tent staring straight at it. It has not moved at all.
has not moved.
Forrest is going to have to pick up our competitor, but Dave and I'll be watching the glider for you. I mean, it has not moved forward
That's incredible.
100 yards.
I've
So
never
those
seen
winds
that.
are howling. Yeah, that is.
If anything, I think it might have moved.
Thank you,
backwards
Chief.
A little bit.
Mr. Troutman's coming in, according to our chief. Is there a special award for this,
Yeah.
Peggy? This is incredible. Okay, we're picking it up on the live feed. Again, that glider's not moving. It has not moved 50 yards since we started looking at it 2 minutes ago.
That's not a photograph. That's
No.
That's a live video.
So we have strong winds here in Salina today.
Very strong winds aloft, and I can probably tell you, Kelly, in the cockpit there is
Whooping?
looking down at the ground and probably wondering.
Harrier. She's got a Harrier right now.
Is
I
she
know.
whooping, do you think, right now?
well,
Knowing Kelly, she's probably giggling.
she
Yeah.
probably is.
I am so jealous right now. Everyone on this field right now wants to be in that glider doing exactly what she's doing.
We don't talk about the stealth capability enough of this aircraft, and I suppose we also don't talk about its VTOL capability either, apparently.
No,
I didn't know it could hover.
still going. Okay, now I would say at this point she's probably moved 50 yards in 3 minutes or something, would you say? It's hard to
Yeah.
tell from where we are, but
I think
now she's going backwards.
I think those clouds have probably moved more than she has.
Yeah. So I actually have a weird aviation goal, and I like weird airplanes, unusual airplanes. Looks like
Yeah.
we have the primary coming in, so I'll pop out for the call. But I have an aviation goal of taking off in a straight line, making no turns, backing up, and landing at the same
Oh, that would
runway.
be incredible.
And on a day like today with like a Cub or something, of course the surface winds are not that high. I just checked them. The METAR said it was 170 at 16 gust 2.5, but our winds aloft are pushing 40 knots. What's the stall speed of that aircraft?
We'll usually stall somewhere around right around 40-ish knots.
Okay, and
anywhere in that range.
she's barely moved. So, and she has
barely
lost a
moved,
tiny
so-
bit of altitude. So I'd
Yeah.
guess the knots are, it was probably 39, 40 knots, and
Just- probably
she's
just
moving
about.
a couple miles an hour
Yeah, just
forward.
about.
That's it.
Looks like she's trying to make a turn and maybe get
Yeah.
herself set up for some sort of pattern.
My grandmother can actually walk faster than that. Yeah, it's not much, but a little bit. So okay, here we are. We got the whistle coming in, and we're gonna pick up our next competitor, which again is Alex Troutman. He's setting up for the 45. Let's see if he can manage to make some relative motion against the ground. Looks like he's actually moving. So that was really cool. Glad we were able to bring that for you. She's still up there making her turn, but 45. Hold the 45 here. Cap off level flight. Set up for the 1.5 turn spin. And I hope we're going to be able to get all this flying in. Surface winds are not too bad right now, but with those winds aloft, you never know. Okay, taking it to the right in the 1.5 turn spin. And remind me to ask you why you guys all hammerhead to the right. I know you don't have to worry about an engine, but okay, now he's moving. He's going downwind, coming into the half cube and 5/8 loop, and we've got a business jet taking off behind us. Thought it was the Alpha for a minute, but they're out playing already, so half roll on the 45.
Beautiful paint scheme on that aircraft.
Yeah, I love that. Now wait a minute, isn't that the Extreme? I think we have him listed as a UND pilot, but oh no, Colorado. Okay, yep, this is the MSU team member pulling into the loop, coming across the top, getting a good view of the world, and maybe the glider. I don't know. Actually, she looks like she's down now. Setting up for the 180. I'm ready to cancel the contest and just launch all the gliders and just hold the formation and just sit there and watch them. Although I'd rather be in the glider.
What a wonderful photo opportunity that'd be.
That would be amazing. And coming around for the slow roll. And Well done, handled the wind. It's a challenge today, there is no doubt about it, but everyone's doing a great job out there with these challenging conditions. So again, we've seen some really great flying here this week, and we continue to see great flying. I'm gonna grab this real quick. We're gonna highlight some sponsors again. I did want to make a special acknowledgement because we've talked a lot about volunteers this week, and we absolutely can't do any of this without volunteers. But there's one volunteer in particular, and we've mentioned them, but every time you mention him, he says, I can't do this without these other volunteers, and so he always takes any credit, any positive credit, and turns around and looks at all the other people, especially our non-flying volunteers. But I really want to highlight and thank Mr. Shag Colson, who took on the heavy mantle of being the contest director. He's done such a great job, and at every moment he has been humble, engaged, active, and taking all positive praise and redistributing it to everybody else for working so hard. So it really has felt like a team effort this week, and I'm just really proud of the work that he did. It was really awesome. It's like we really came together this year in the contest. So I'm really excited for the future, and really proud of his leadership. He's just done an amazing job. So we have read names before, but in the program, I don't know if that's accessible online. Do we have a digital copy of that online somewhere? I don't think we do yet, but people were able to write little notes. So we have these really beautiful full color ads for some of our major sponsors, our diamond sponsors, Extra and MX Aircraft. Thank you for your support. Salina Airport, Lift Aviation, Aura Aero has like a really cool line of aircraft. We had the rep out last year, and he was really great to talk to. We've had support from the local community, the beverage provider Mahaska, local Chamber of Commerce, Aircraft Spruce, and then the first individual with a note here after the MT prop feature, showing some of those beautiful props off on game birds and edges and Extra, of course, is Mr. Goody Thomas. And Goody Thomas says, best of luck to all competitors. And we had a great week. Thank you, Goody. Your indomitable spirit is always appreciated, and your positive attitude is infectious. And I'm looking for the other ads here. Good luck to the U.S. teams and safe flying for all. From Mary Claire and Johnny, Team Whiskey Whiskey. Thank you for your support. It's a really nice photo of the Unlimited team with Coco Bessier and the team manager Alice Johnson. So next coming into the box is got to be a UND student, because they can't possibly flip that Extreme Decathlon around so fast. So that must be, there's Extreme. So this must be Ryan Peen. This should be Ryan Peen coming in here from, we just had Braden in the Extreme, because we went Justin Braden, and we're now on to Ryan. So he's coming into the box now, setting up with that 45. And he'll cap off level flight, setting up for the 1.5 turn spin. Into the half Cuban. Set the 45 down line, half roll, show that second line, pull level, and he's got to have enough speed to fly the loop. And into the competition 180. It's not yours? Okay, all right. And setting up for the slow roll, figure 5 in the primary sequence. And he wing wags out. So continuing with these cool ads and illustrations. So we have Arizona Soaring too. Shad's out of Estrella Sailport, and Jason Stevens out there. It says Soaring, it's just plain fun. Do you take any umbrage with the wording of that?
It's a great pun.
It's an aircraft.
Great pun.
I'm not sure it's a plane.
It's, I don't know. I consider it a plane.
Do you?
I don't know what the technical definition of a plane is, but it is a vehicle that flies and can generate lift. So from that definition, I consider it a plane.
Well, and then you get into a motor glider and it gets real complicated
Oh, yeah.
real
Yeah,
fast.
it gets
So
very complicated.
but soaring is just plain fun. Maybe they're mocking airplanes.
Maybe.
Do you think that's
maybe.
true?
I mean, we don't have the luxury of doing things like going around or anything like that. So we have to be perfect the first time.
Yeah.
So I think there's maybe a bit of that in that pun.
That's right. The nation's leading provider of quality and professional glider training since 1969. We proudly train more glider pilots annually than any other location in the nation. Primary, add-on instructor, aerobatic, corporate charter flight department training, 12 sailplanes, trainers, racers, and unlimited aerobatics in the MDM-1 Fox. And we have our next competitor has been cleared into the box. Jacob. I'm not going to try that, Dave.
Monax.
Thank you. I knew you would have that. So
Jake Monax.
rather than butcher it.
Next up in the box is
Do we have eyes on?
haven't been able to spot him quite yet.
Okay. So we'll continue with our sponsors. We have a nice graphic from Patty Wagstaff Aviation Safety LLC. Full Stop Aviation says best of luck for a safe and successful competition. Justin Wright of Full Stop Aviation there in Union City, Tennessee, supporting the team and many other aerobatic competitors. Mike Gullion says good luck in the 23 U.S. Nationals. And an advertisement for the World Advanced Aerobatic Championship starting October 24th through 3rd. I know the teams will be out there on the 11th and 12th to do some training. And it looks like our glider pilot cadet is off tow, Dave.
Jake is off tow, and thanks to Bob again and Scotty, both our tow team this week. They've been absolutely incredible and great people to work with. All right, and Jake's getting himself aligned here with the box, looking at the winds aloft, trying to get a feel. That will definitely play a very large factor into the positioning of this sequence. As we saw a few moments ago with Kelly, kind of frozen in the air, it's going to be important for Jake to be positioned well here.
Yeah, and so I just was picking that up, but that was a repositioning turn. It wasn't
It
a
was.
competition turn that we saw.
Alrighty, looks like he's setting up here for figure one, that half loop up to inverted. He starts on the upwind, and as he loops up, he'll be inverted on the downwind. But as we expose our wings there to that wind aloft, he's going to get pushed significantly, just like that. And here he goes into figure two. 5/8 loop up to that 30-degree upline. Cap. Figure three here, the split S, half roll. He's looking to loop down.
Tie this down.
Down points to the right of the judges. Jake's going to perform that reverse shark's tooth. 30-degree upline with a half roll. Flying the aircraft down now to a straight vertical down line. Next figure, he's thinking about his positioning in the box, feeling those apparently quite strong winds aloft
That's gonna help.
before performing this pull humpy. First pull to the vertical, the loop over the top, and he's going to set this vertical down line just like that. Pulling out here into figure six. Into the hammerhead. So here he goes, pulling into the vertical. Getting pushed by that wind, kicking over. Hoping that all 28 feet of the aircraft comes around, rolling 1/4. Away from the judges now. Next up is that quarter clover. There he is. Clovering to the left. So wings level inverted. And finishing the loop into figure 8, which is the half Cuban. 5/8 the loop. Set line briefly, then rolling the aircraft back to upright, setting another line very briefly before pulling out into the last figure, that 2-point hesitation roll, rolling left there towards the judges, showing off our Air Force decal and that 60-foot wingspan. Great job, Jake. That was great.
Jacob.
So just continuing on, recognizing some of our donors once again, John Wilcombe. Good luck to all of the pilots and have a safe 2023 Nationals. Thank you, John. Softy Parachute with an in-kind donation as well as sponsorship here. And we had an auction last night and they auctioned off a credit for a parachute. That was very generous of them and very generous of all the bidders last night at the auction. To support what we do out here. And Dagmar says, Guten Appetit to the judges from Dagmar, sponsor of the Judges Snacks. 10% off with Acro, A-K-R-O, at flygoodmerch.com. That's Rob Holland's brand, the Fly Good Don't Suck brand. A couple ads there. So if you like the merchandise he's got on there, you can get a 10% off with the AKRO. And David and Martha Martin. David, a board member, unlimited competitor, world team competitor, and air show pilot. David and Martha, good luck to all competitors at 2023 U.S. Nationals. Thank you guys, appreciate that. Schilling Air Services in Salina, Kansas, good luck to all the competitors. AvFlight in Salina Regional Airport, they've been supporting us with fuel and other services throughout the week. And Jason Stevens out in Arizona, wishing everyone their best in competition. Good luck from Jason. We talked about Jason earlier in the week. Unlimited glider aerobatic pilot, multi-time national champion, world competitor, all-around great performer. Always enjoy watching him fly. And we would be remiss if we didn't mention Northwest Insurance Group. That's the brand stats. They've been out here working so hard for us this week. Really impressive. Jim and Terry, and Jim is everywhere at once. It's absolutely incredible. I told his wife this morning if I was doing what he was doing, I would just collapse. So really some of these non-flying volunteers just working incredibly hard. Guy Atchison says, thanks for your support. Big smile on his face sitting in front of that big, beautiful MDM-1 Fox glider. And Champion Aerospace Bonehead donated a carbon fiber helmet to us, and that went for a nice amount yesterday in the auction. Very cool. Aerobatic coffee from the various chapters, and Jerry and Peggy Ridinger. Peggy once again out here doing 2 different lines for the chiefing, so working doubly hard. We have Mr. Jerry Esquinazi lining up momentarily to enter for the unknown. I hear him out there. And Forrest has got him with the wing wags. And I'll make the call. This is Philip Gregg here with Dave. Let me get your last name again.
Petzold.
Petzold from the United States Air Force Academy 2023 U.S. Nationals. This is Jerry Esquinazi's third flight, the unknown flight in intermediate power. He's going into this third flight with a lead, and so he's trying to bring home a national championship here with this flight. Let's watch Jerry into the avalanche. Now into the half square, he'll pull the vertical quarter roll up, push off to level flight, and setting up for the spin. Maybe a 1 1/4 spin to the pilot's left. At the completion of the spin, he'll set the down line. Into figure 4, the P loop. And to remind you, he pulls vertical and then into a 3/4 loop. Over the top. Working the back half of the radius and into level flight. Exit to the judge's right. Setting up now for the 180-degree competition turn. I mentioned Jerry earlier. He is retired Air Force, and he flew I think tankers or cargo planes. I don't remember the exact designation. He's now with a major airline. Setting up now for the 45. Pull to the 45, half roll layout inverted. very patient here, wants to get his positioning right for the next few maneuvers. He's thinking about that ahead of time, you can see. And into the half loop, down. Nothing, no roll elements on that, just the half loop. Setting up for the reverse half Cuban. Pull 45, 204. 1, 2. And into the 5/8 loop. Setting up now for some crossbox maneuvers. He's got a couple crossbox maneuvers to think about. He'll pull to the vertical and do a quarter roll up for the hammerhead. Pivot at the top. Back out, setting up for the hammerhead. Excuse me, for the Humpty Bump. Over the top into the half loop, he'll set the down line. Quarter roll to the pilot's left. And exit to the judge's right. Figure 11 is the wedge, and he's wagging out. He's decided he wants to reset up, come in and fly 11 and 12. So he'll do that. I was talking to Jerry the other day, and he had his wife with him. I hadn't met her before. I met Jerry a couple of times. His wife, Letty, I believe, may be inside the office watching him fly right now. So thanks for letting us borrow Jerry at these contests. He's always a delight. Fun group of guys in intermediate. They're real competitive with each other, and they're also very collegial. They have a lot of fun together. So can't wait to move up. Just for the social aspects. I'm not interested.
Just the social,
yeah,
not
I'm not worried in the flying. Yeah,
not the routines. No.
That's not why we're here. So let's see what Jerry decides to do here. Also, one of our sponsors, Hooker Harness. They've been very supportive of regional national contests, so thank you to Hooker Harness for that. Red Fox Air Shows, Yuichi Takagi. Wasn't able to make nationals this year. He had signed up, but wasn't able to make it. We may be able to see him at AWAC. And looking for Jerry now. He's out there circling around, kind of thinking about position. Surface winds are picking up a little bit. METAR was showing slightly higher winds, but a little lag in what I can get off of ForeFlight. So, but I think they're staying steady, but not getting ripping down here. So I think the ground ops will be okay for a little while.
Yeah, I think our weather shop back home in Colorado was predicting that they'd stay just about like this for another 45 minutes or so.
Okay. Well, that's good. I hope we can get as much flying in as possible. So we're setting up for figure 11 here in the wedge. Right in front of the judges, pulls vertical. He'll pull down to the 45. And on the 45 down, a 204 hesitation roll. And into figure 12, the final figure for this flight and final figure for Jerry's competition here at the United States National Aerobatic Championship in 2003. Pulls into the radius. He's going to do a half loop, get that high G on a low part, start to float the loop just a tiny bit, and into the 1.5 roll. He'll end upright and exiting to the judges' right. So we're looking for wing wags. There they are. And he says, "Thank you, judges. Thank you, Jerry, for a great week of flying. We'll see you next year."
Contact tower.
Looking over to the chief now, figure out what's going on. Okay, why do you hammerhead to the right? What is that? I mean,
think,
there's no torque, I know, but
Well, when you were talking about handedness earlier, that's really what it is. For most of the team, hammering to the right is just what feels right.
Uh-huh.
I'm actually an oddball. I hammer to the left. That's what feels right to me.
Are you left-footed?
I'm not actually. I'm right-footed.
Okay. Are you right-handed?
I'm also right-handed, but
Okay.
I just hammering to the left feels correct.
Yeah. So I'm right-handed, but I'm left-footed. So I can snowboard. I don't surf anymore.
Yeah.
I would just fall off the board. But when I did, I can goofy or full.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And same like on a skateboard or snowboarding. But I'm definitely right-handed and left-footed.
Yeah. No, and
So.
we all hammer to the right, or most of us hammer to the right. Spinning to the right is also common. Coach Maticola talks about being a spin dexterous.
Spin dexterous.
Spin dexterous.
I like
being able to
that.
spin both directions and.
Has that been copyrighted yet or trademarked?
think
Because
so.
I'm gonna go do that right
One
now.
of the many coachisms.
I like it. It's good.
But yeah, so at least for me personally, I can spin either direction. It feels comfortable. But most of the team spins to the right, and most of the team hammers to the right.
Yeah, that's a funny one in power too, because some people want the dynamics left or the dynamics right, and it's a personal choice. And then I was talking to one of my fellow competitors and sportsmen, and I said, "Why do you always spin to the right?" He says, "I was taught to spin to the right. I was taught to spin to the left, and I can go both directions, but it's kind of an individual choice. And then later in the categories, you have to go both directions. So at some point, it becomes irrelevant."
Exactly. Yeah.
That's funny.
And it depends a lot as well on our placement in the box. We'll determine which way we should be hammering. Like if we're at the corner of the box, it's not great to hammer out. So we'd probably like to hammer in that situation. But most of the time, it's more comfortable for most of the team to hammer off to the right.
Yeah, super interesting. So you mentioned your coach, Maddie.
Yes.
And I just want to check the line here. Looks like, I thought that might have been a 330 SC. It looks like we have Peter Nassar coming in with extra 330 SC. Is he the only one that gives ground critique, or do you develop a capability within the instructor pilot and the competitors to do that? Because obviously you're very comfortable calling these figures.
Yeah, so as a team, we're very comfortable with each other, and I think we all do a very good job of giving each other feedback. We all want the same thing, which is to learn and to get better. And it's really nice because as a team, we're good at giving and receiving feedback.
Peter Nassar. We have Peter Nassar coming in. We have Wing Wags and Dave with the call on the
For figure one here.
unknown.
First figure here is the avalanche. As a glider pilot, I didn't see how nice this looks, but it's a loop with a full positive snap roll at the top of it. Snap roll to the pilot's right-hand side as Peter finishes this loop here. Figure two, figure four. There it is, quarter roll. And the cap as he sets up and slows down to figure three, which is a 1 1/4 turn spin. Setting that down line, showing the judges that down line. We're doing it differently than a standard spin recovery. This is a P-loop figure 4. It's a vertical upline as he convinces his aircraft to finish that loop. The winds aloft, it would appear, have picked up quite a bit. Next to that 180-degree competition turn. It's not your standard coordinated turn. Figure 6 is a 45-degree upline with a half roll. As he thinks about his positioning here in the box, you hear that engine finally gets those winds aloft. Laying out here or pulling to wings level inverted. Figure 7 is just a half loop down. And now figure 8. Into a reverse half loop where for a 45-degree upline of 204. Hesitation roll. Finishing that loop down. And he'll drive across the box here. For the next figure, which is a hammerhead, the quarter roll on the up. probably trying to factor in the winds aloft right now as the surface winds have picked up a little bit. Quarter roll. And now he's going to hammerhead. Kicking his left rudder. Setting this vertical down line. Into figure 10. There's a hump to go.
Oh. Take my pen back.
Vertical upline. He's going to draw that nice long upline. Loop over the top. Set that vertical down line. Show it off to the judges. And then a quarter roll. Pulling out off to the judges' right. Figure 11's a wedge. Into the vertical. And he's going to pull all the way to 45 down line with a 2 of 4 hesitation roll. There's 1 and 2 points. Drawing that line into his final figure here. Figure 12 is a tighter than moment, just a half of the bump with a roll and a half.
I think I propose we call that the super Immelman.
Super Immelman,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, let's call it that.
And the wing wags out.
Thanks, Peter. Exit to the north and
job,
switch
Peter.
to tower.
We're making great progress out here, so we're hoping to get all this flying in before the winds cause us any potential concerns because the winds are high, but they're manageable. So everyone's doing a nice job with that today. Working through the line.
Yeah, those winds aloft would appear to have picked up. I think with that last sequence we saw a lot of thought into the positioning of each figure, and it appears that that push up there has gotten a lot stronger.
So I think it's time to put another glider in the air and see if it can fly backwards.
Yeah.
Just making a technical adjustment here to our equipment. Bear with us. And should all be good. We've got Corey Gorillas coming into the box in his beautiful 330 SC, extra 330 SC, the fluorescent green and blue. It's another one of those ones that looks good in the air and looks good on the video as well. It's kind of a matte paint job, so it doesn't have the sun glints that, you know, we love shiny airplanes, but they can actually create problems for perception and judging just because they can reflect the light into your eyes. So he's chosen to go with a matte paint scheme, and that seems to help. In fact, it gives a visual density to the airplane that I think has a good impact. You can't miss him. So between the color and the sound, he can't sneak up on you like the gliders.
Yeah. No, our white gliders against even featureless sky is sometimes hard to spot.
Corey's diving into the box now, getting up ahead of steam. He signaled his intent to start the sequence with the wing wags to the judges, and he's just coming across the judging line now, setting up for figure number 1, which is the avalanche. That color actually looks electrified, doesn't it?
It does.
Like it's lit.
It does.
And he pulls into the loop. Gonna put a snap on top of the loop there. Around the world. And down. Half square, pull vertical, quarter roll up. Push to upright level flight, setting up for the 1 1/4 turn spin to head back downwind and set up for figure number 4. Into the spin now. Vertical down. Figure 4. P-loop. Making the turn, competition 180 turn. Bringing that towards the judges. And setting up for figure 5, figure 6, the pull to 45, half roll, layout inverted. There's the half roll. Needs to make that second line as long as the first. Judges will be looking at that as well as the angle. Layout inverted and into a half loop down. No rolls on that figure. Coming around now through 180 degrees of pitch. And setting up for the reverse half Cuban with a 2 of 4 hesitation roll. There's his hesitation roll and into the 5/8 loop. Coming around now with good airspeed and high G as he pulls out of that looping figure and setting up for the hammerhead with a quarter roll on the upline. Thinking about subsequent figures, he wants to have adequate space to the judge's right to be able to place the last couple of figures. So he pulls vertical at the end of the box, quarter roll up, pivot out. Wow, those SCs can draw a line, can't they?
Yeah, one up line.
Yeah. Again, a little hard to tell sometimes on the camera, but a significant altitude gain there. Pretty cool. And then into the Humpty Bump, figure 10. If you talk to SC drivers, they'll sometimes tell you, that they gain altitude in figures that they never did in other airplanes, and so they have to completely recalculate everything, and they're flying out of the top of the box. I've never had that problem.
No, as a glider pilot, I can't say I've ever had the problem of gaining too much altitude.
I wouldn't imagine that you would. Yeah. So out of the Humpty Bump and into figure 11, which is the wedge, he pulls vertical. He's going to set that 45 down line inverted. He'll pull it around, look out through his nose, and set that 45 down. Hesitation roll, 2 of 4 on the 45. And setting up for figure 12, which at least for now we're going to call the Super Immelman.
There's a half loop up and a roll and a half to finish.
And Corey's done.
Thanks, Corey. Exit north.
Congratulations, Corey, on another Nationals. I know he's been here the last 3 years, and then we did not have Nationals 1 year during COVID, so I'm not sure if that's the only 3 Nationals he's flown, but I know I've seen him each of the last 3 years here flying in the intermediate category. So always look forward to seeing that airplane. It's cool. I haven't really talked to him about how he picked the colors and all that, but it's actually a vinyl wrap, so I don't know what color the airplane itself is, but kind of some cool choices there. Fun to walk through the hangar and look at all the different choices and color schemes people have picked out. And that's when I noticed that Navy marked glider, and I had to ask you about that because I thought maybe you guys had snuck into Pensacola or something and borrowed without asking, but it's all government property, right? I mean, we could.
Something like that.
Okay, we have audio back. If you heard a dead air there, we had to just make a little adjustment. So we're back. I'm Philip Gregg. This is, I want to say your name right, Dave Petzold?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Dave, with the United States Air Force Academy. Lori Penner here is doing a lot of stuff in the background along with Forrest Fox. We're working through the power primary, power intermediate, and the intermediate glider, the remnants of it, because a couple of the folks flew there unknown yesterday and had to head back to the Academy. And so we're making our way through. Wind's definitely picking up here. I'm going to get out from under this tent because I'm wondering if this is being picked up in the microphone, so we'll just stand out in the breeze instead. And we'll have the 4-minute free for you later today. Dave and I will finish our work up here, and then you're going to be joined by Ryan Chapman and Luke Penner, both members of the advanced team for Canada. So excited to have them out here. We have a number of the US and Canadian team competitors getting ready here at US Nationals, and will be in Las Vegas area around the 11th or 12th of October, and then competing in the later part of the month at what used to be called AWAC. It's now called WAC with 2 A's. I call it WAC. So world competition here in the United States, we're excited for that, but Ryan and Luke will have the call on the 4-minute free. That should be exciting, and we're gonna have a number of people flying the 4-minute free. It looks like Mr. Jim Burke, Rob Holland, Goody Thomas, Mike Galloway, Craig Gifford, and Jeff Bourbon. So that's a great lineup for you, and that's really the more air show-like sequence. It's balanced performance, poise, interesting maneuvers. They're allowed to use smoke. It's a totally different flight program. It actually has a historical connection to the Lockheed Trophy that was held in the 1950s in England, and it was purely sort of a performance art, and the competitors started to get upset about how subjective the judging was, and so we had the first modern World Aerobatic Championship in Bratislava, then Czechoslovakia, now I believe the capital of Slovakia, and that was more of a Aresti-based constructed program, and so the 4-minute free is sort of the homage to the Lockheed Trophy that was held in the mid-50s. So there's connectivity there. And people sometimes forget that aerobatic competition was actually an Olympic event at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin.
Really?
Yes, it was.
Oh.
I can't tell you about who competed there. I don't know who got the gold medal. I really don't know. I know that was also the Olympics where Hannah Reich flew that sort of helicopter thing inside of a stadium, in a completely closed stadium, and she talks about it in her autobiography. But they had to go in there and practice, and when they first started practicing, they basically said, we're not sure we can do this, and we don't think we can do it safely, because all these people were going to be in this 360-degree Coliseum. So they made multiple flights, and they were under extreme pressure to demonstrate this. And based on what I've read about it historically, it was really not very safe. I mean, I wouldn't want to be near a rotorcraft inside of a Coliseum with a top on it.
No.
Okay, we have a little information. The sport of aeronautics, more accurately described as gliding, has been on the Olympic program only once, as a demonstration sport in the Berlin 1936 Olympic Games. Thank you, Forrest. No competition was held, just a demonstration of the sport by 14 pilots from 7 countries, August 4th, 1936. That's awesome. And one can imagine, so Wolf Hirth was sort of the father of soaring in Germany, and Hannah Reich knew him because they were from the same village, and I'm certain that that Wolf Hirth would have been there or influential, if not actually flying. So interesting history there. There's some really great history books about soaring and the evolution of soaring, and then of course we go into aerobatics. So it's all glider all day. Do we have a question from the audience? Can I read it? Is it him to answer and I to ask, or do you want to? Okay. What are the negative, positive limitations of the glider? Or generally? I don't. Okay, we don't know what plane, so we just had a question about positive and negative G. So I think let me give a preliminary answer, and then you can jump in with the glider. So it depends on if you're talking about design and engineering, or if you're talking about certification. So the acrobatic or aerobatic type certificate, you have normal, utility, and aerobatic is +6, -3. As a consequence of that, a lot of people think that the Pitts is stressed to +6 and -3, when in reality it's not. It's engineered to +6 and -6, but Curtis Pitts was rumored to have said, never give the feds more than they ask for. So when people see -3.5, 3.84 on a Pitts, and they go, oh, you're over G in your airplane. Maybe on paper, but maybe not to an engineer.
Yeah.
And we can get into some other airframes too. But what can you tell us about G limits, plus and minus, on your glider, the DG, and then the Fox that you guys are going to be flying?
Yeah. So I can speak to the DG. I do not know for the Fox off the top of my head. I haven't studied the manual for that one, but for the DG, at our aerobatic weight, our G limits are +7, -5. So that's quite significant, actually, if you think about it. The F-18 is limited to +7.5, so we're almost there, on par with an F-18 in terms of positive G, but that's what we're limited at our aerobatic weight, and then at our utility weight, we're limited to +5 and -2.6. And of course, there's variations depending on whether our air brakes are out or with wind gusts and whatever, but when we're flying here, we're looking for +7 is our max and -5 is our minimum. But usually we like to keep it around -2 to +5. We really don't need more or less than that in competition.
And the G limits are interesting because in a fighter with all that power, they can sustain that. So if you pull 6G in a pits, that 6G is not going to last super long because we're at low airspeeds. But with the thrust, the power to weight ratio of an F-18, you could hold a 6G turn until the fuel runs out.
Yeah, exactly.
And you could hold a 9G turn until the fuel runs out, or until you finally black out. So it's a little bit different. Looks like we have a primary competitor coming into the box here. I'm going to peek in here and see who we've got. It looks like we have Michaela Gillis from UND flying here. She's back on the team this year and been having a good time with everybody out there. She's going to pull to the 45 for her first figure and set up for that primary sequence. So we should continue with that G question. I like it. Wind picking up out here on the surface. We can only imagine what's going on up there. Michaela into the 1.5 turn spin. Stops the rotation, sets the vertical down line. Hear that prop and engine surging as she goes into the half Cuban, 5/8 of a loop. And she's looking to set that 45 down line. Little pause. Little half roll, little pause, and setting up for the loop. The down portion of that half Cuban allows you to recover speed, having come over the top so that you can set up for the looping maneuver. Coming over the top requires quite a bit of speed, so you got to get your speed up and then pull for the loop. We have the benefit of thrust in the airplane and the glider. Better make it count, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the glider, the setup is critical to that maneuver.
Into the competition, 180 turn, and Michaela has taken that away from the judges. Great position here, and then setting up for the roll. And she chooses to roll right. So that's the second right-hand roll we've seen in primary. It's unusual. So they're working. They're getting unhanded. That's cool. Yeah. You would think that a left and a right roll are just, oh, well, this one's that way. And the first time you do a right-hand roll, it
feels weird.
It feels weird, and it typically doesn't go very well, does it?
No, and in the glider, we'll typically roll to the left just because when we fly with our right hand, it's easier to get the stick pinned off to the left-hand side. And so I've rolled to the right a couple times, and every time it just feels weird.
Yeah, and so Forrest gave us the interwebs there, and it looks like the Fox limits are +7, -5. Now, we talked about certification. We talked about the numbers. Some of these aircraft have, some of the unlimited aircraft basically have +9, -9, +12, -9, and then there's the ultimate failure load as well. So under the certification standards, if you're +6, your ultimate failure load would be at least half again as much. So a +6 rated airplane would have an ultimate failure load of 9. The reality is you're probably going to start breaking stuff at that point, but you're not going to have a catastrophic failure, especially in a biplane because everything's screwed together.
Yeah, exactly.
You can certainly do a lot of damage. So the answer is it sort of depends, but nobody's flying that hard and in excess of the limits because we're very safety conscious, and a lot of our training is about, you know, Dave, you talked about having critical airspeeds for those down looping maneuvers, which can be problematic, so that's a real safety concern. Like I said in the previous broadcast, I've never really, we're sometimes people think we're stunt pilots, but we're controlled, and I've never met a group of more safety obsessed people.
Oh yeah, no, and I think especially as a glider pilot where we don't have engines or anything with the ability to recover like that, it's more important that we're safety conscious, because if we get in a bad situation we don't have the option to power out of it or anything. So things like watching our airspeed before we pull through inverted, watching our airspeed when we're rolling, things like that are very important to us as well. So very safety minded as a team.
Yeah, there was a famous bush pilot up in Alaska, and there was a story told that you know, he was taking up a passenger, and the passenger said, "Well, I'm really worried about how safe this was," and he said, "Well, I don't care about you, but I really care about me, and I'm sitting about 12 inches behind you." But most of us want to come back down too, so because we love the flying. And you know, the other thing too is aerobatics is not something that's different or deviant. It's actually just expanding the what is a normal flight envelope.
Exactly.
So we use the entire flight envelope. We use all the aileron, sometimes all of the forward or rear stick, sometimes all of the rudder, and it really gives you mastery of an aircraft, and it
Yeah.
applies. You can take those skill sets. I don't care if it's a glider or a powered plane, and even into your cross-country flying, or you hop into a high-performance aircraft, and it's some part of that skill set is going to aid you in being a better pilot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and you know, really being able to see the full flight envelope with the glider is a wonderful thing as well. And when we instruct our basic soaring students back at the academy, we provide
I bring all the best airplanes